dobry Państwu po raz drugi, bo z każdym z Państwa witałam się. Myślę, Grzegorzu, że Ty też się z każdym z Państwa powitałeś.
Z większością.
Mam nadzieję, że powiedziałeś, że jesteś prezesem Polskiego Związku Kolarskiego. Ja na dzień dobry dziękuję Tobie za współorganizację tego wydarzenia. I zanim przedstawię Państwu, właściwie mogłabym przedstawiać każdego z Państwa osobno, bo jesteście Państwo, każdy tworzycie inną piękną historię rowerową. Ale jeśli Państwo pozwolicie, mamy gości zagranicznych i zgodnie z protokołem powitam tychże Państwa w pierwszej kolejności. Bardzo miło powitać mi panią Daphne Bergsme, ambasador Holandii w Polsce. Pani ambasador Päivi Lein, ambasador Finlandii. Miło mi również powitać pana konsula i attaché kulturalnego ambasady Estonii, pana Jurgo Lo. I oczywiście z wielką przyjemnością i zaszczytem witam panią sekretarz stanu w Ministerstwie Sportu i Turystyki, panią Annę Krupkę. Pozwolą Państwo, że powitam jeszcze jedną osobę i to będzie ta złota piątka powitanych na początku, ale później obiecuję, że przywitam każdego z Państwa osobno. Będą ku temu takie okoliczności. I ostatnia osoba, pan Michał Szułdrzyński, pierwszy zastępca redaktora naczelnego Rzeczpospolitej, dziennika Rzeczpospolita. Szanowni Państwo, jesteśmy tutaj, bo połączyła nas jedna bardzo ważna rzecz. Rowery. Każdy z Państwa, panie ambasador, pan attaché, nasz zastępca redaktora naczelnego, jeżdżą rowerem, co bardzo ważne. Wszyscy z Państwa, którzy dzisiaj tutaj się znaleźli, mają jakiś związek z rowerami. Większy, mniejszy, ale można powiedzieć, że jesteście ambasadorami zmiany rowerowej w Polsce, za co serdecznie dziękuję.
Ja również chciałem Państwa bardzo serdecznie przywitać na tym pierwszym, ale mam nadzieję, że nie ostatnim.
Na pewno nie ostatnim.
Szczycie rowerowym polskim. I bardzo się cieszę, że również w imieniu Polskiego Związku Kolarskiego możemy uczestniczyć w tym wydarzeniu i promować jazdę na rowerze, bo jest to kluczowe z punktu widzenia później kolarstwa, czyli już takiego wyczynowego uprawiania sportu, ale również zdrowia społeczeństwa. Więc tym bardziej się cieszę, że przybyliście Państwo tutaj w tak znakomitym gronie. Będziemy mogli porozmawiać o tym właśnie rowerze i jego roli w Polsce. Dziękuję.
Dziękuję bardzo. Szanowni Państwo, od 23 maja na łamach Rzeczpospolitej co tydzień publikowaliśmy Państwu, rozpoczynając akcję Rowerem przez Polskę, akcję społeczną, pokazywaliśmy, jak wygląda rowerowa Polska, jak wyglądają rowerowe miasta, regiony, jak wyglądają nasze rowerowe szlaki. Dyskutowaliśmy o polityce transportowej miast, w tym o polityce rowerowej. Oczywiście przybliżaliśmy te kraje, których przedstawicieli ambasad dzisiaj gościmy, które są naszą zdecydowaną inspiracją. Myślę, że Polska może bardzo dużo nauczyć się na pewno od Holandii, na pewno od Finlandii, która jeździ przez cały rok, zimą również. Dlatego potwierdzam Państwu, że nasza akcja Rowerem przez Polskę będzie trwała na naszych łamach przez cały rok. Nie kończymy dzisiaj, podsumowujemy tylko jeden z etapów. Warto przyjrzeć się także Estonii, która w tym zakresie, jak pokaże nam pan attaché kulturalny, jest dla nas również wielkim wzorem. Bardzo Państwu dziękuję i mam nadzieję, że to dzisiejsze spotkanie będzie inspiracją, będzie wzajemnym dzieleniem się wiedzą i przede wszystkim, że będzie się tu unosiła fantastyczna energia. Może jeszcze gwoli wyjaśnienia. Przed nami, przed Centrum Olimpijskim, ponieważ wybraliśmy to miejsce nieprzypadkowo. To piękny dom naszych olimpijczyków, których wśród nas jest olimpijka, medalistka olimpijska, którą serdecznie witam, Iwona Marcinkiewicz, ambasadorka naszej akcji Rowerem przez Polskę. Ten dom to inspiracja do zmiany, do tego, że można pokonywać wszelkie przeszkody. I ja myślę, że my pokonamy przeszkody rowerowe w Polsce. Musimy dużo zrobić, musimy przekonać bardzo dużo grup społecznych do tego, aby zmieniła się rowerowa Polska. Ale myślę, że mając takich ambasadorów, jak nasz redaktor, pierwszy redaktor Rzeczpospolitej Michał Szułdzyński, zrobimy to. Michale, zapraszam do poprowadzenia pierwszej debaty o rowerowej rewolucji. Dziękuję Państwu bardzo.
Dziękuję bardzo za ten zaszczyt i zarazem za możliwość wykorzystania swojej pasji rowerowej do poprowadzenia tej dyskusji. Chciałbym serdecznie zaprosić na scenę Państwa, którzy będą brali udział w pierwszym panelu. Więc bardzo proszę Panią ambasador Holandii, Panią Daphne Bergsma. Uprzejmie zapraszam Panią Päivi Lein z ambasador Finlandii, Pana Jurgo Lo z konsula i attaché kulturalnego ambasady Estonii oraz Panią Annę Krupkę, sekretarza stanu w Ministerstwie Sportu i Turystyki. No problem. Ladies and gentlemen, we will hold this panel in English because our guests will be it will be much easier for them. We will start with the short presentations in which our diplomats, our guests in Warsaw and representatives of the countries will show the best practices they have in their own countries and how did they manage to make this bicycle revolution. So let us start maybe with Holland, which is the first association when you ask somebody which is the country when people use the bike, and first answer is Holland, but not only Holland we will see during this part.
Shall I stand there?
It's up to you. Okay, maybe you can go there.
I can't see.
Okay.
First of all, I have to apologize. I'm much better in cycling than I am in speaking Polish. So that's why I'm speaking English today. Yes, I would like to show you some of our best practices. I'll share with you some characteristics, some more general information, and mainly what I want to show you that cycling in the Netherlands is for everyone at every age, regardless the weather, regardless your background, your profession, etc., etc. In short, it's for everyone. Here you see that some examples. And we are proud in the Netherlands that we have 37,000 kilometers of fully segregated bike lanes, which indeed makes us regarded as the world's most successful cycling nation. Just to place this a bit more into your perspective, because you might think, well, 37,000 kilometers, what does it mean? Well, Poland is 8 times bigger than the Netherlands. So 8 times 37,000, and this I calculated at home, makes 296,000 kilometers in segregated bike lanes in Poland. Mrs. Minister, 200,096 kilometers. It's your challenge. I'm sure you will make it. I'm sure you will make it. In the Netherlands, 28% of all trips are made by bicycle. In total, Dutch people cycle 17.6 billion kilometers each year, which means 3 kilometers of cycling per day per person. This includes babies. Your cycling career in the Netherlands usually starts at the age of 2 or 3. And it also concludes people like my parents, 92, 93, still cycling. We are also among the safest countries in the world for cycling. The fatality rate is only 0.9 per 100 million kilometers cycled. Again, who are the cyclists? As I already said, it's everyone. Everyone, age, what do you see? Pregnant women, also our new the new immigrants to the Netherlands, refugees. We have a huge Turkish and Moroccan community in the Netherlands, and especially among the first generation of women from those communities, they weren't used to cycling, so there are special courses organized for them so that they learn how to cycle. Again, it's everyone, whether you are disabled, whether you have a handicap, when you are pregnant, cycling is simply for everyone. It's all ages, as you can see. Might be at a different age in your life, it's more for recreation. Other ages, you are maybe a teenager cycling to school, or you are working, you're cycling to your job. Again, all ages. It's also all purposes, as I already mentioned. Work, and you see the Prime Minister there. The middle picture is the Prime Minister, who indeed, this is not only for the picture, but who indeed cycles to work every day, regardless the weather. For many people, cycling is simply the standard mode of transportation. It's cheap, it's easy, it's quick. People commute to work. For children and students, you go to your school, to university, you go by bicycle. And especially for children, and I think this is really characteristic for the Dutch culture, for children it also means freedom. So at an early age, and I will get back to that later, at an early age you are already learning how to cycle, but more important, you are already learning how to behave in the traffic. And that is especially important, not only for the kids, but for the parents as well, of course. We also see more and more cargo bikes nowadays. E-bikes are becoming more and more popular. Rain or shine, regardless the weather, not only in Finland, also in the Netherlands, we cycle. I remember when I used to cycle to school that my mom would only make an exception if it was really very icy. Then I was allowed to go by bus, but the problem was that the bus stop was far away from school, so I still had to walk 20 minutes or half an hour. So that was not always the better solution. The picture with the rain, this is indeed what I still do nowadays. Cycling in Warsaw, you sometimes, after it has rained, you come in these situations as well. I simply lift my legs and I keep on cycling. Otherwise you get too wet. Just some short examples. How indeed, because when we are talking about a cycling revolution, these are indeed examples and practices that made people more enthusiastic and made it much more easy for people to cycle. I choose this example because this is close to where I live in the Netherlands, in Scheveningen. It's The Hague, it's close to the beach. And the crossings, the 2 crossings, in fact, you see on those pictures, I use them every day, either by car or by bicycle or as a pedestrian. It used to be an old-fashioned crossing, not very safe, not very practical, and it was changed into a roundabout. And the most important thing there, I think, is that cyclists have priority. So cars have to wait for the cyclist to pass around the roundabout. And now it works perfectly. And as I said, I have used it before, I still use it, and I think it's a huge improvement, and it makes cycling much easier. And also it works because car drivers know that they have to give priority to cyclists. They might not always like it, but that's the rule in the Netherlands. Another example is a bicycle highway. The bicycle highway is between the two cities Arnhem and Nijmegen in the south of the Netherlands. They are 18 kilometers apart. Nijmegen has a university, Arnhem has many industries, and cyclists would use the normal road where also cars were driving, and that became too congested and not very safe. So the two cities decided to build a cycling highway. It's a huge success. I mean, you just have no cars, no other people to disturb you. And this also helps people to change their mode of transportation, also at different ages again, by using this cycling highway. And the last example I would like to mention, because many times when I'm meeting Polish people, they are saying, well, but how can you let your children cycle to school? And I said, well, we do that because at an early age, at primary school, we start with some traffic classes where children are taught how to ride a bicycle in traffic, what are the rules, what they should do, what they should absolutely not do. And this, for instance, leads to a certificate, a diploma, at the age of about 11. When you pass that exam, your parents will feel comfortable with you cycling to school. I still have this diploma. I also got it when I was 11 years old. I was then very proud of it, of course. But I think it's a huge help also in stimulating parents to let your children cycle to school, and this might be also a nice example for Poland. A few examples for those of you who want to know more. We have a Dutch cycling vision. It's translated into Polish. You can find it, you can still use the QR code, but you can find it on the internet, and we can help you with that as well. And we also have a booklet with the best practices. I know some of the cycling NGOs in Poland are already using it. We have all over the world. We have several Royal Netherlands embassies, but we have only one Dutch cycling embassy that operates worldwide and is also always happy to share its knowledge here in Poland. I hope you find this useful, enjoy it, and I'm sure here I'm preaching for the converted, but cycling is fun. Cycling is simply nice and healthy.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Now I'd like to ask Ms. Päivi Laine, the ambassador of Finland in Poland.
Dzień dobry, bardzo mi miło tu widać tyle ludzi, szanowni państwo, i muszę powiedzieć, że kocham sport i kocham jazdę na rowerze. But since this is an English speaking thing, I will try to switch into English. I was asked to talk about winter cycling, and that is the reality in today's Finland. And to start with, I would like to show the map of Finland, where you can see that we are a little bit north of the rest of Europe. And Oulu, which is the city there at the bottom of the Gulf of Bothnia, is called the capital of winter cycling in Finland. And that specific city is 650 kilometers north of Helsinki, 170 kilometers down from the polar circle. So I can guarantee you that the circumstances are pretty Arctic. And I checked today the weather there it's still very mild for end of October, as it's here also. So in Oulu it was 0 degrees this morning. And the other city which is mentioned, which is the eastern city Joensuu, there it was +1, and in Helsinki it was +6. But as I said, it's called the capital of winter cycling in Finland, and this is the schoolyard of one of the schools, and you can see that most of the kids arrive to school also in the winter by bicycle. And also in this picture you can see that even during the day, the daylight is not so very bright in the northern parts of our country. But as my Dutch colleague was mentioning, it is very popular in Finland also that children go to school by bicycle. And here it says that half of the kids go, but I think that it's much more than that. And you have to teach the kids from the early on, or they learn it by themselves also, that the weather is not a pretext. So you go no matter what the weather is like. And in Oulu, they have since 1960s been planning cycling routes and thinking what to do to enhance cycling. And also there the cycling is prioritized from the cars or from the car traffic. And that is shown, for example, in the wintertime, that in Oulu they will clear the bicycle paths first from snow and only then start doing the roads. And I can tell you the car drivers are complaining about this every now and then, but these are the only things, or the only way, I think, to enhance cycling is to prioritize it and make it really an option for getting where you're going faster. And the one thing, maybe this is a detail, but for winter cycling, it's important that you don't clear the snow, all of it, because then when in winter you have to use these studded tires on your bike, they have much better grip on this hard snow than if you have asphalt. So these are things that you learn by doing. And one thing what in Finland we also think, because Finland has announced that we want to be carbon neutral country by 2035. So bicycling is of course one part of this, because cars produce so much of the carbon emissions. So we take this also into consideration. And then mentioning just the Joensuu town, which is next to the Russia, but there also they have been paying a lot of attention to the winter cycling and making it possible throughout the year. There they have counted it. The Finnish cities are not so huge. Oulu has about 200,000 inhabitants. Here in Joensuu we have about 80,000 inhabitants, and 3/4 of the inhabitants live like 20 minutes drive or ride from the city center, so it's very easy for them to reach the center by bicycle. And that's what they do. Helsinki, our capital, is a little bit behind these other cities, these mentioned cities in the amount of biking, but they have made a specific strategy for increasing bicycling throughout the year. And they want to get the share of traffic done by bikes to 25% by 2035. And that is exactly the date when we want to also reach the carbon neutrality. But as I said, this is really important for the city planners to pay attention how to help the bicyclers to go around. And they say that in Helsinki, the city planner for these traffic issues doesn't have a driver's license, and sometimes when going by car to Helsinki center, you can really feel it, that it's actually quite inconvenient to go by car. And I often think to myself that, oh gosh, by bike I would have been there already. And then the other thing, what also increases the popularity of biking is the cash, because parking in city center Helsinki is awfully expensive for cars. For bikes, it's okay. And when talking about winter biking, I think there are 3 issues that are important. One is good infrastructure that we've been talking about here. The other is proper clothing. In Finland, when we have weather throughout the year, not excellent, but okay, so all the time there is no bad weather, there is just inappropriate clothing. So whatever you do, you have to look outside, what is the weather like and how should you dress. So it starts in the winter from woolen underwear, and then you put lots of layers on. And then in the winter, of course, these studs in tires is very important. And in Finland, you can see the same seasons go with the cars. People go and change into winter tires or back to the summer tires, but the same happens with the or the cyclers. That's what you have to do. So maybe just to conclude, that apart from being really fun, bicycling, it's healthy and it helps us to reach or to fight the climate change. And I think that these are really, really important goals for all of us. And it helps congestion too. But thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. And now I would like to ask Mr. Jurgo Law to tell the floor and to make a short presentation about Estonia.
Thank you. When I came to Poland 2 years ago, I was actually quite surprised how well developed the network of bicycle roads is in Warsaw, at least. I don't have so much experience in other Polish towns, but still. Also, the bicycle traffic is rather smooth, and the participants are pretty well disciplined, I think, standing in nice queues behind the red lights. I don't think our bicyclists are as disciplined as that. The first thing we did was to buy bikes for the whole family, and they are Polish bikes. My son is biking regularly to school, and myself, I have only 1.5 kilometers to work, so I often walk instead, so to try to burn more calories, but also bike. And we take regular biking tours in weekends. So. In Estonia, the raising of the mindset which favors biking begins also already in kindergarten. Some kindergartens have had these traffic areas before, but last year the Tallinn city started a campaign, also together with some private participants, to renovate the existing traffic areas in kindergartens and also to building new traffic squares, which takes into account the possibilities of each and every kindergarten. The traffic square, of course, teaches children how to behave in traffic, to practice riding a bicycle from an early age. And the teachers can create different traffic situations to play out and build temporary traffic squares, correct and repeat the right traffic behavior, such as crossing the road, traffic lights, and so on. a cyclist can ride alone on the road from the age of 10, and kids from 10 to 15 need biking license, which can be obtained from the schools which work with this, or the traffic department. So there is still a long way to go to the level of the Dutch system, but still I can say that the local governments in Estonia are increasingly applying more bike-friendly policies and practices to encourage people to bike. Just an example of what is the biking strategy of the city of Tallinn. Basically, the broad aim of the strategy, of course, is to improve the residents' quality of life through the main targets of health, mobility, safety, and living environment. And the basic points is to bring access to biking lanes closer to everyone, to increase the availability of going directly to biking paths, especially when the school journeys are involved. Also to increase the possibility of parking your bike safely in town. I have the statistics from 2020, which said that then Tallinn had 300 kilometers of bike roads and is constantly developing new ones. Still, Tallinn is probably the most difficult task for city planners, as it's quite, it has been quite unsafe for bikers before, so there is not so much space to build new roads and to take into consideration the bikers. But I hope the city planners are doing their best. There is, of course, always a vivid discussion if they are doing it most effectively, if they are using the right paint, if it's the painting technique is of good quality, and so on. But basically, the main thing is that they are doing something according to the aims of the strategy, and they are moving ahead. There is safe, free bicycle parking in Tallinn, with a possibility to use either your transportation card or your mobility or your mobile application. All parking lots have video surveillance, and there is also an increasing number of public bike maintenance spots which are near the so-called health ways, which are meant for more longer leisure and sports rides near the environment. Also, of course, now apart from scooters, there are also Bolt electrical bikes, also as in Warsaw and many European cities. Tartu has adapted a bit different policy. There is a fully established city bike system, which is very comfortable, works with the application, and I always try to use it when I'm in Tartu. Most of Estonian cities are apart from Tallinn, are actually quite small and very, very bikeable. not so much traffic, not so many people, and they are much more safe than Tallinn. And for example, of the measures in Tartu, you can apply for support for the construction of a bicycle parking lot for the houses with at least 10 apartments. And also with the support from an NGO, the Tartu city government launched a Tartu bicycle rental pilot project. This is not just for everyday use, but it offers entrepreneurs and also private individuals an opportunity to try to use cargo bikes. The work of NGOs is, of course, of utmost importance in trying to promote biking, and one of those is this Tallinn Bicycle Weeks and Tour de Tour de Night. Means night in English. Where group rides and activities are brought to life by a broad cycle of bicycle fans so to say, to take the streets back to bicycles, and to celebrate the bicycle as one of the greatest thoughts and action-inspiring mechanism ever invented. Of course, everybody can see that the bike has not evolved so much over the decades. Basically, it's the same. So I tried to find the photo with the most participants so that you can see that it's really a massive thing. It's not every year, but when it happens, it's really big. Also, when we regained our independence, the Green Movement started the bike tours, where every day they visit some region of Estonia and learn about this. It started from in 1988 from the individual concerns of environment in Eastern Estonia, the protest actions that was called the Phosphorite War. So when I prepared this presentation, I actually discovered that the first bicycle revolution in Estonia is not now, but it already was in the around 100 years ago, where we had a pretty big national bicycle industry, and eventually we had, I think, one bike for every five people in Estonia. In the Soviet time, there was no biking production, but I was also surprised to see that now we have actually several producers again, who produce mostly e-bikes. For example, the first on the upper left, the Hagen bike, is also listed on the Estonian Stock Exchange. And just recently, one guy made a backflip with this model with a back thing. So. Estonia is a very good place for biking because the distances are small, the height differences are not so big, and the tourist infrastructure is reasonably well developed. So we invite everybody to bike in Estonia. Dziękuję bardzo.
Thank you very much, Mr. Asher. And as we are talking about bicycle revolution in Poland, I would like to ask Ms. Anna Krupka, the Secretary of State in the Ministry of Sport and Tourism, to take the floor. Because where are we in Poland now at? What is the point we are now and what is the point we are heading to and what is the policy of Polish state. Pani minister, zapraszam.
Szanowny Panie Redaktorze, drodzy goście, Szanowni Państwo. Oczywiście to, co ja tutaj zobaczyłam i te przykłady dobrych praktyk, a tak naprawdę kolarstwa jako sposobu na życie, jazdę na rowerem jako sposobu na życie, który prezentowali moi poprzednicy, państwo ambasadorowie, pan konsul z Holandii, z Finlandii i Estonii. Rzeczywiście te przykłady robią wrażenie. U nas w tym momencie jazda na rowerze nie jest, można powiedzieć, jeszcze takim dominującym sposobem na życie, ale mam poczucie, że wszystko przed nami, bo rzeczywiście turystyka rowerowa w Polsce przeżywa renesans. To, co dzieje się w infrastrukturze sportowej, właśnie przeznaczonej na potrzeby turystyki rowerowej, napawa ogromnym optymizmem. Powstają nowe trasy, ale także województwa, powiaty czy gminy tworzą koncepcje szlaków na swoim terenie. Pojawiają się już także trasy o zasięgu międzynarodowym, krajowym czy regionalnym i wzrasta zainteresowanie tą formą aktywnego wypoczynku. Coraz więcej osób uprawia po prostu turystykę rowerową. Świadczą o tym dane ze sprawozdań działalności PTTK. Jak pokazują, turystyka kolarska jest w czołówce najpopularniejszych rodzajów turystyki aktywnej uprawianej w ramach imprez organizowanych przez PTTK na terenie całej Polski. Wzrost zainteresowania jest oczywiście widoczny także w popycie na rowerowe wyjazdy turystyczne. W ostatnich latach dynamicznie wzrosła liczba firm zajmujących się organizacją takich wyjazdów. Jeszcze w 2011 roku tych firm było od 5 do 8, a obecnie liczba ta oscyluje w okolicach 40. Do tego należy dodać także stowarzyszenia, kluby, grupy niesformalizowane organizujące rowerowe wyjazdy turystyczne, a więc także i te dane dotyczące firm i stowarzyszeń organizujących wyjazdy pokazują ogromne zainteresowanie tą formą aktywnego wypoczynku. Zwiększa się także zapotrzebowanie na dobrze przygotowane produkty turystyki rowerowej różnego rodzaju. Na przykład dowodem tutaj jest ogromne zainteresowanie produktami takimi jak Green Velo, Enduro Trail, Bielsko-Biała, Srebrna Góra na Dolnym Śląsku, Karkonosze czy strefa Sudety MTB. I to zainteresowanie i te trasy corocznie ściągają coraz więcej rowerzystów. Wreszcie obserwujemy ewolucję oczekiwań polskich turystów korzystających ze zorganizowanych wyjazdów rowerowych. Spodziewają się oni coraz wyższej jakości usług i standardu miejsc noclegowych. W wypadku produktów turystycznych takich jak szlaki turystyczne czy rowerowe regiony turystyczne, turyści oczekują obszernej informacji w internecie, tak aby mogli dzięki temu zaplanować wyjazd. Także turysta szuka przed wyjazdem na przykład map, przewodników po szlaku, po regionie wraz z dostępnymi śladami GPX, z bazą noclegową, bazą gastronomiczną, informacją o możliwości dojechania publicznym środkiem transportu, możliwością wypożyczenia dobrej jakości roweru, dostępu do usług rowerowych, takich jak serwis, jak sklep rowerowy, transport rowerów i bagaży na trasie, a więc widzimy, że wzrost zainteresowania tą turystyką rowerową niesie za sobą także tak naprawdę rozwój całej branży przemysłowej, usług związanych właśnie z jazdą na rowerze i z turystyką rowerową, z tą formą wypoczynku. Bardzo mocno rozwijającą się gałęzią branży rowerowej są również rowery elektryczne. Na sprzęcie tego typu jeździ coraz więcej osób i powinno to także wpływać na planowanie bądź rewitalizację szlaków rowerowych pod kątem możliwości ładowania rowerów elektrycznych. Takie rozwiązania są stosowane w Niemczech, Austrii czy Włoszech. I oczywiście to, co mówiła pani ambasador, dla nas wyzwaniem są szlaki i te szlaki turystyki rowerowej, ale także dostosowywanie ulic polskich miast do potrzeb osób poruszających się na rowerze. Natomiast branża turystyki rowerowej rozwija się naprawdę dynamicznie, tak jak i infrastruktura sportowa, więc jestem przekonana, że skoro powstaje, można powiedzieć, taka moda na jazdę na rowerze, to za tym będą szły kolejne kilometry ciekawych tras, także tras turystyki rowerowej tej górskiej, co ja również obserwuję w regionie, który reprezentuję w polskim parlamencie, a więc w województwie świętokrzyskim. W województwie świętokrzyskim są najniższe góry w Polsce i stąd być może także ogromna popularność właśnie kolarstwa górskiego w tym regionie. Bardzo dziękuję.
Bardzo dziękuję pani minister. And I would like to ask you to join a small discussion now, because Ms. Krupka said about industry. We have very strong bicycle industry in Poland. Between 20 and 30% of all bikes in Europe are produced in Poland. 80% or 70, 80% in Poland people say, I own a bike. So it's a huge numbers of bikes here. But still there's something in people's mindsets, in culture, that people prefer driving a car. What are your experiences for your countries? What works better? Incentives or disincentives? To encourage people to use a bike or to make using car harder? What works better? How it was in your countries? How it is in Poland, in Holland?
I don't think it's either or. And as my Finnish colleague has already referred to, what absolutely works is high prices for parking in cities. If you want to drive your car in Amsterdam, you will probably pay about, nowadays, I guess, about €9 per hour for parking. So that is really, it's an incentive to bike, it's a disincentive not to use your car. And on the other hand, it's also making cycling easier and making it normal, I would say, because I see the changes in Poland and I'm talking to people, but you still have the feeling like it's not simply, it doesn't go without saying that if you go to work, you take your bicycle. It's still something people have to make a conscious decision depending on all the circumstances. So, but I would say both, incentives and disincentives. And sometimes Dutch car drivers will say, well, you're making our life impossible. Yes, in a way, that's true, but I think it's necessary, given our goals for a CO2 emission-free country in 2030.
And my additional question, because in Poland, in many polls, the researchers say that for many people the car is a symbol of freedom. And you told that in Holland, the Netherlands, the bicycle is a symbol of freedom. How was this shift? How to make this adjustment?
I think that starts early in life, because for a child who cannot drive a car, you grow up knowing and realizing that the bicycle gives you freedom. If you want to, at the age of 10, you go to your football club. At the age of 14, 16, you go to the discotheque, or wherever you want to go and spend your weekend, you go by bicycle, and that means freedom. You are not depending on your parents. You can more or less, probably that your parents tell you when to come home, but still, you mean on your bicycle, you can still decide yourself. So that's where it starts. It starts in the mindset. Bicycles give you freedom. And at a later age, again, if you have to go by car to a city, what's the freedom? Yeah, maybe if you come from far away, but then you have to look for a parking place, you have to pay the parking place, you have to stand in a traffic jam, etc., etc., etc. Then either you take the bicycle, like between the example I showed you, Arnhem and Nijmegen, with the bicycle highway. What is 18 kilometers? It's nothing. If it is much further, it's easier to take the train and bring your bicycle in the train, for instance.
And how it works in Finland? Incentives or disincentives?
I think my colleague said much of it, that it's both. It's both. But of course, usually life is better with incentives, and you try to go the positive way. And then also, as my colleague said, that it starts from the early age, and you have to have the possibilities. When you get used to it, that you go to school by bike, then you sort of like grow into it. But I would also say then, when we talk about commuting to work, as we a little bit discussed before this event, you have to have this infrastructure, which is apart from the pass. It's also that when you bicycle, for example, 18 kilometers to work, then after that you need a shower, you need a place where to change your clothes, and then also secure parking, because it's really awful. When I was a kid, we never locked our bikes anywhere. Okay, I'm from the countryside, but still. But nowadays, also the theft of bikes is awful, so we need secure parking places. But I would also say that I think that this, especially among the young people, the consciousness about the climate issues, that is also very important, because for these young people, this is a value, and then they do everything they can. And I think that cars are, at least not in Finland anymore, among the young people, they're not the symbol of anything else, but maybe it's just the exploitation of the natural resources.
And in Estonia, what is the policy? What policy works better? The positive or negative one?
I agree with my colleagues that it should be a combination. Of course, if somebody has to go to town with a car for the cargo or something like that, there should be a possibility. But it should be made easier, more comfortable to take the bike. For example, I mentioned that these safe, electronically closed bike parking places in Estonia. Basically, the company that produces it, they sell it to companies, local governments, and so on. So for the end user, the citizen, the use of the parking is free. And that gives, for example, a company who wants a bike parking place at their house headquarters, for example, they get more clients, and the clients can park free. So yes, I think it's a combination of these. In Estonia, basically, also you can take the bike on a train or a bus Lux Express, for example, takes if it's possible, if there is room, they take bikes for free.
Pani minister, zachęcać czy zniechęcać?
I think that we must encourage. Yes, but I agree with my with the panelists that it's the complex issue. It's the combo of two things, two factors. First of all, really going to work, for example, by car, sometimes is expensive. You know, towns, mayors raise parking issue, parking costs, but of course also we must, I think, make possibilities for people to go by bike, because simply there must be roads, there must be trails for biking, for going by bike, and I think in the most big cities in Poland they are, but when, for example, you live, I don't know, in the countryside near the Warsaw, well, it's difficult to go by bike, especially, for example, in winter. So it's the combo of these two factors, and it's a complex issue, yes.
Thank you. We have a few minutes left, but maybe there are some questions to our panelists from audience. Yes, please.
Hi, I have a question for Mrs. Ambassador of Netherlands. My name is Peter. I'm coming from Silesia region. The question is, I've been living in Netherlands for almost 1 year, and I've been also traveling by car and by bus and by bike. And I noticed that there are two realities. There is a reality of highways and the reality of bike. And maybe you can explain that to me. Nobody could when I was living there. How you came to this point where really there is a huge traffic on the highway, despite there are lots of highways. And on the other hand, there's so many people cycling, and somehow those two words are connected, or there's a certain type of people, private especially, which like to drive a car and will never switch for bike, despite, of course, the commercial use of cars, yes? So, because most of the times they have to use the car. Or this is just that there people are forced to use the car on daily basis to travel between work and home, but whenever they don't have to travel, they use a bike.
Thank you for this question, and thank you for expecting me to give the answer, which apparently none of my country men or women have been able to give you. I think one of the explanations could be that, as I said before, Poland is 8 times bigger than the Netherlands. So we are 8 times smaller, and we are 17 million people. So the level of getting congested is sooner reached than in a huge country like Poland. That's one issue. And of course, there will be always people who like cars. There will be always people who don't want to use public transport when they are living further away from their work. One of the reasons also for these separate realities, I think, is that in the early 70s, late 70s, it was very much promoted that people would live outside of the cities. But usually the work stayed in the city or around the city. So, and that is something we are now slowly coming back from, and people themselves are coming back from, because people want to live closer to where they work. Yes, you could say there is also a division of bike fanatics, people who really care about the environment. It is different But I think now the government and the local authorities are realizing this, and they are also now designing cities, designing highways, and making or creating all kinds of incentives to make sure that people, especially for the shorter distances, are using their bicycle and not a car. But you're right. I hope it will be solved soon.
Pani ambasador ma jeszcze jedną zachętę, one more incentive from Finland.
Yeah, I just wanted to tell also, because it came to my mind right now, is that in Finland, different employers, including state employers like my Ministry for Foreign Affairs, we have so-called office bikes. So when we need to go during the workday to a meeting in town, we have bicycles that we can take. And I think this is an excellent system, especially because the foreign ministry in Finland is placed on one of the islands, so we only have one tram going out of there, so it's a little bit complicated. But by bike, you are there in most of the meetings, 5-10 minutes, and I think it's great, and they keep them in good condition, and you have the helmet and everything, so it's a great system for all the ministries in Poland also to follow.
Are there any more questions? Yes, please, Mr.
Hello, Łukasz Kubacki, historian from Warsaw. I have two questions. First one, is it mandatory to have some kind of insurance as a person who rides a bicycle in Netherlands, in Finland or Estonia? And the second question is, do you have to register your bicycle? Like many years ago, for example, up to the early 50s, you had to register bike and carry the register plate in Poland on every bicycle. So, thank you.
What are the answers?
Register is no longer, as an historian, what you're saying, I do remember that my grandparents had like a little license plate on the back of their bicycles, but that's absolutely no longer possible. You don't need a separate insurance for riding your bicycle, but you are, as an individual, everyone needs to have what would be the right word? The individual insurance if you are, do you know, Dorota, WA-verzekering? Yeah, individual liability, but nothing special for using your bicycle, unless you decide to buy a insurance in case your bicycle is stolen. But that's something completely different.
In Finland?
No and no, so no such requirements. But actually in Finland, it is compulsory to use a helmet when you ride a bicycle. So that is kind of a life insurance also.
Yeah, I really encourage you to use a helmet. I had an accident just exactly 1 week ago, and I fall down on my head, and my helmet saved my life. How is it in Estonia?
In Estonia, helmets are compulsory up to 16 years of age, and also, otherwise it's the same, that sometime in history there was a register, but not anymore. I think I have heard that some private NGO has tried to offer this opportunity, that you want to register your bike to have a special number for that in case it gets stolen or so on. And it is not necessary to have insurance either.
Thank you very, very much. I think that we are a bit closer to the bicycle revolution after this session. Thank you very much.